Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most admired actors, quietly entered a luxury car dealership. To him, it was just another day, a calm moment to explore his passion, but the events that were about to unfold would change everything. When the truth about him emerged, the consequences would not just be surprising, they'd be unforgettable. Before we dive into this captivating story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy tales like this, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, we'll have another special story just for you. It was a quintessential Los Angeles morning, with a bright blue sky stretching wide like an open invitation to possibility. Keanu Reeves walked along the bustling streets. His calm and unpretentious demeanor offered a sharp contrast to the occasional admiring glances he received from passers-by who recognized him. Always gracious, Keanu responded with a nod or a simple wave, offering a quiet kindness that had become his signature. Fame, to him, was never something to flaunt. Halfway through his morning stroll, he paused at a cozy, familiar cafe. The comforting aroma of fresh coffee filled the air as he stepped inside. The barista behind the counter looked up with a friendly smile. "Good morning, Oliver," Keanu greeted warmly. "Morning, Keanu. The usual?" Oliver asked, already reaching for a cup. "Yes, please," Keanu replied with a small smile. As he waited for his coffee, his mind wandered to a personal project that had been consuming his thoughts. For several months now, he had been searching for something unique. Not just a rare car to add to a collection, but a vehicle with character, something he could restore and transform into a meaningful piece for charity or as a tribute to a cause close to his heart. This was no passing fancy but a pursuit driven by both passion and purpose. With his coffee in hand, he resumed his journey. There was a dealership he had heard of, a place renowned for its luxurious, one-of-a-kind automobiles. Perhaps today would be the day he found what he was searching for. The dealership exuded an air of opulence from the moment he stepped through its glass doors. The polished marble floors gleamed under soft lighting, reflecting the pristine surfaces of the cars on display. Plush carpets muffled footsteps, and the unmistakable scent of rich leather hung in the air. Sleek, modern furniture and well-dressed sales staff created an atmosphere designed to impress. Customers clad in tailored suits and designer accessories moved through the showroom, their conversations hushed and their mannerisms refined. In his simplicity, Keanu was nearly invisible. His worn attire did not align with the polished image of the clientele typically seen in such a setting. Nearly unnoticed, he moved quietly among the dazzling cars, his discerning eye taking in every detail. One vehicle in particular drew his attention, a rare vintage model tucked away at the back of the showroom. It seemed to belong to another era, its elegant curves and immaculate paintwork a testament to craftsmanship rarely seen today. The aura of exclusivity that surrounded it was exactly what he had been seeking. Approaching a salesman engrossed in his phone, Keanu spoke softly. "Excuse me, could you tell me more about this model?" The salesman barely looked up. With a dismissive gesture, he muttered, "Hang on, I'll get someone," before walking away without a second glance. Keanu watched him leave, his expression remaining composed though a slight furrow appeared between his brows. Unbothered by the snub, he turned his attention back to the car, studying its graceful lines and intricate details. Behind him, whispers began to circulate among the employees. "Does he even know where he is?" one muttered. "Not looking like that," another replied with a smirk. Keanu's keen ears caught their words, but he chose to ignore them. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, masking his growing discomfort. He had encountered prejudice before, and reacting to it was rarely his way. Instead, he focused on the car that had so thoroughly captured his interest. Moments later, the air around him seemed to grow heavier. A man with a stiff posture and a calculating gaze approached. Richard, the manager, walked with deliberate steps, each one measured as though carrying the weight of his authority. He stopped a few paces from Keanu, crossing his arms in a display of dominance. "Interested in this model?" Richard asked, his smile more a test than a greeting. "Yes, it's quite impressive. I'd like to know more about it," Keanu replied, his tone calm and polite. Richard's eyes swept over Keanu's appearance, lingering on his faded jeans. His expression turned amused, almost condescending. "Interesting," he murmured, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "This is one of our most exclusive cars." Very few people even get to see one, let alone own it. Keanu remained steady. I understand. That's why I'm here. Richard shifted slightly, positioning himself between Keanu and the car. You do realize this car costs more than some homes in Beverly Hills, right? It's not exactly for everyone. Keanu's eyes held Richard's gaze. I'm aware, he said simply. Richard's dry laugh held no warmth. These cars attract a certain kind of clientele, people who understand what they're buying. No offense, but you don't exactly fit the profile. He gestured vaguely toward Keanu's attire. The silence that followed was palpable. Some employees paused to watch the exchange, while others pretended not to notice. Keanu did not respond immediately. He let the moment stretch, the weight of his calm presence building. It's curious, he said finally, his tone thoughtful, how you judge people by their clothes. That says more about you than it does about me. Richard's eyes narrowed. He took a step closer, his voice lowering but retaining its edge. Listen, buddy, I see people like you all the time. They come in, look around, dream a little, and leave without spending a dime. If you're here to play pretend, I'd appreciate it if you didn't waste my time. Keanu remained unmoved, his posture relaxed but resolute. And if I'm not here to dream? Richard scoffed. Then I'd say you're in the wrong place. This dealership is for people who can pay, people with something to prove. The air grew heavier still, laden with unspoken judgments and assumptions. Keanu looked at Richard for a long moment, his calm patience now edged with something deeper, a quiet, unshakable resolve. His eyes never wavered as he offered a small, knowing smile. Not one of joy but of someone who had fully understood the kind of person he was dealing with. Funny, I always thought the real luxury was treating people with respect. Maybe you should think about that, Keanu said, his voice calm but cutting. Keanu stood firm before the manager, Richard, who now radiated anger and contempt with every word. The tension in the room was palpable, and the employees and customers nearby could no longer hide that they were watching the confrontation unfold. Richard's hostile tone grew sharper, as though he needed to win this argument to reaffirm his authority. People like you only come here to waste everyone's time, Richard said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. This isn't a stroll through the park, and it's definitely not a place for dreamers with worn jackets and empty pockets. Keanu tilted his head slightly, studying the man in front of him with a calm but penetrating gaze. He took a deep breath before replying, carefully choosing his words. Funny, you talk about wasting time when you're so busy judging others by what they wear instead of who they are. Maybe you should think about what really matters, he said, his voice steady but resolute. Richard narrowed his eyes, his face now flushed with frustration. He stepped forward, invading Keanu's personal space. Oh, I know exactly what matters, he snapped, his tone laced with venom. And it's certainly not moral lessons from someone who thinks they have the right to walk in here like they belong. You don't even know who you're dealing with. Keanu didn't flinch. He held his ground, his gaze locked with Richard's. This only further fueled the manager's anger. Realizing his words were having no effect, Richard completely lost control. You don't tell me what to do, Richard shouted, raising his fist in a rash attempt to intimidate Keanu, or perhaps even strike him. But Keanu reacted swiftly, with the composure of someone accustomed to tense situations. He raised his hand and caught Richard's fist midair. The movement was firm, yet not aggressive, a gesture of restraint, not retaliation. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Richard stood still, stunned that his blow had been so easily intercepted. The entire showroom fell silent, all eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. Keanu looked directly into Richard's eyes, his expression now carrying something deeper. He didn't appear angry, but there was an almost unsettling strength in his voice when he spoke. The anger you're feeling has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's time to look inward and deal with that before you take it out on others. He released Richard's fist with the same calm demeanor with which he had stopped it. The manager stepped back, clearly shaken, but he tried to mask his insecurity with a rigid posture. Keanu adjusted his jacket, stepped back slightly, and cast one last look at Richard. Respect doesn't cost a thing, but for some people, it seems harder to find than any car in this place. Without waiting for a response, Keanu turned and began walking toward the exit. The showroom remained silent, save for the sound of his firm footsteps on the gleaming floor. The employees and customers stood frozen, some still holding their breath as though unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Then, something caught Keanu's attention. A young man standing in a corner of the dealership was holding up his phone. He had been recording not just the final interaction but, apparently, the entire scene. Keanu paused for a brief moment, locking eyes with the young man, who looked nervous but determined. The man gave Keanu a small nod, a gesture of quiet solidarity. Keanu responded with a faint smile, almost imperceptible, before walking out through the glass doors, disappearing into the Los Angeles sunlight. Inside the dealership, Richard struggled to regain his composure, but the silence around him and the accusing stares of the other employees made it clear that something had changed. The video recorded by the young man wouldn't stay hidden for long. And when the world saw what had happened in that showroom, the consequences would be as devastating as they were inevitable. By the next morning, the world already knew the story. The video recorded in the dealership had been posted on social media by the young man who had quietly documented everything. Within hours, the footage went viral, shared by thousands of people outraged by the way Keanu Reeves had been treated. The contrast was striking. A man renowned for his humility being humiliated by someone so arrogant. The video began with Richard ignoring Keanu and making disrespectful remarks, but the turning point was unmistakable. The moment when the manager attempted to assault Keanu, only for him to deflect it with unsettling calm. Keanu's line, "Respect doesn't cost a thing, but it seems rarer than any car here," instantly went viral, appearing on posts, memes, and even in newspaper headlines. Online, the comments were relentless. How can anyone treat Keanu Reeves like this? He's literally one of the most humble and kind men in Hollywood. That manager clearly thinks he's superior. What a disgrace to the dealership. Keanu, as always, handling arrogant people with grace. Absolute legend. This should be a lesson. Never underestimate people, regardless of how they appear. Entertainment blogs and news outlets quickly latched onto the story. It wasn't just about disrespecting a customer but one of the most respected actors in the world. The public narrative not only defended Keanu but also criticized elitist and prejudiced practices in luxurious spaces like that dealership. At the dealership, the fallout was immediate and devastating. The company's social media pages were flooded with negative comments demanding explanations and apologies. Criticism came from all corners of the world, with people announcing boycotts and calling for the manager's dismissal. Richard attempted to justify his actions, but every statement he made seemed to worsen the situation. His explanations were riddled with empty excuses and showed no genuine remorse. The situation was a misunderstanding. "I didn't immediately recognize Mr. Reeves, and my behavior was misinterpreted," he claimed. The public wasn't buying it. The collective outrage was unstoppable. Employees at the dealership, fearing for their jobs, began speaking anonymously to the press, confirming that Richard's behavior wasn't new. He's always treated people like that. It didn't matter if they were rich or not. He thought he was better than everyone, one employee revealed. This only fueled the fire of public indignation. The dealership lost significant clients and saw its sales numbers plummet. No one wanted to be associated with a place carrying such a tarnished reputation. While the world buzzed with the incident, Keanu remained silent. He had never been one to seek revenge or fuel conflicts. At home, surrounded by the simplicity that always defined him, he reflected on what had happened. He knew the situation wasn't unique. Prejudice based on appearance, social status, or financial condition was all too common, and he didn't want this experience to become just another isolated incident. He decided to do something meaningful. Keanu shared his thoughts with a close friend. "The video is out there, and people are reacting, but I don't want this to end as just another scandal. I want to do something that truly inspires change." "And what are you going to do?" the friend asked. "Handle it my way," Keanu replied with a faint but determined smile. Keanu knew he had to return to that dealership, not to retaliate but to turn the situation into a powerful lesson. After hanging up the phone, Keanu Reeves sat quietly, lost in thought about the car that had caught his eye. It lingered in his mind, not just as a vehicle, but as a symbol of something far greater. He felt the pull of unfinished business and knew he needed to go back. "I have to return," he thought. The only question left was, what would he do when he got there? Days passed, and the video of his encounter with the arrogant dealership manager continued to dominate social media and headlines. Keanu's name remained a trending topic, yet true to his nature, he stayed out of the public eye and refrained from making any statements. He understood, however, that this story needed a meaningful conclusion. One quiet afternoon, Keanu returned to the same dealership. There were no cameras, no security entourage, just his calm, unassuming presence. But this time, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Everyone in the dealership knew exactly who he was. Employees froze the moment he walked through the door. Some looked nervous, while others showed signs of shame. Richard, the manager, stood behind the counter. His once brash and confident demeanor had crumbled. His face was pale, and his posture hesitant. The once bustling showroom was now eerily empty, a stark reflection of the public backlash and mass boycott that had rocked the business. Keanu walked over to the car that had originally captured his attention. He placed his hand on its sleek surface, running his fingers gently along its contours, just as he had before. But now, the tension didn't come from the car, it was in the room itself. He could feel Richard's eyes fixed on him, filled with a mixture of fear and regret. Summoning all his courage, Richard approached Keanu, his voice low and subdued. "Mr. Reeves," he began, "I want to sincerely apologize for what happened. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd be happy to show you the car again and start fresh." Keanu turned slowly, locking eyes with Richard. The manager swallowed hard, his confidence faltering under Keanu's calm but penetrating gaze. "Start fresh?" Keanu asked softly. "You still don't understand. The issue isn't just how you treated me, it's how you treat people." "Any person." Richard opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Keanu's voice remained calm, yet each word carried unmistakable weight. "Respect isn't a privilege you reserve for those you think are important. It's a fundamental value. Either you have it, or you don't." The room fell into an even deeper silence. Keanu took a step back, his gaze unwavering. "I came here looking for something meaningful. Instead, I found a place where respect seems harder to find than any car in your inventory. That's why I won't be buying this car, not from this dealership." The weight of his words crushed the air out of the room. Richard shrank under the gravity of the moment, while employees and customers alike stood rooted in place, absorbing the powerful lesson. Keanu turned and began walking toward the door. Just before stepping outside, he glanced back. True luxury isn't about price tags or exclusivity. It's about treating people with dignity. Unfortunately, that seems rarer than any car you have here. With that, he left, his footsteps echoing in the silent showroom. Days later, the video of the incident still circulated online, but now the conversation had evolved. People weren't just talking about disrespect, they were discussing how Keanu had transformed an ugly moment into a universal lesson about kindness and humility. Once again, he had become a symbol of quiet strength. Not long after, Keanu found himself at a modest car dealership owned by a middle-aged man named Sam, who was known for his warmth and fairness. When Keanu walked in, Sam greeted him with a genuine smile. "Welcome. How can I help you today?" "I'm looking for something special," Keanu replied. "A car that represents more than just transportation. I think you can help me." Their interaction was free of judgment, filled instead with genuine connection. Keanu found the car he wanted, a vehicle that now carried personal meaning. He took a picture with Sam and his team and shared it on social media with a simple caption, "True luxury is respect." "Thank you for reminding me." The post went viral, and Sam's dealership became a beacon of what customer service should be, focused on dignity and human connection rather than status. People flocked to the shop, inspired by its values. Keanu's quiet act of defiance sparked a global movement. People began sharing their own stories of prejudice and resilience. Hashtags like #RespectIsLuxury and #LearnFromKeanu trended worldwide. Celebrities, activists, and brands jumped on board, reflecting on the importance of inclusivity and empathy. Even luxury car manufacturers revised their marketing narratives, recognizing the growing demand for human-centered values. Meanwhile, the original dealership continued to suffer. Richard was dismissed amid an outpouring of public outrage and lost clients. Although the dealership attempted to rebuild, its reputation was irreparably damaged. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that disrespect has lasting consequences. When asked about the event, Keanu's response was characteristically humble. "This was never about me," he said. "It's about how we treat one another. Respect isn't something you earn based on your status or wealth. It's a basic human right, something everyone deserves." Reflecting on the experience, he added, "Even difficult moments can become opportunities for change. Respect doesn't cost a thing, but when we give it, it can transform the world." The car Keanu purchased became a symbol of the story. It was auctioned for charity, raising millions to promote equality and inclusion. At the event, Keanu delivered a short but powerful speech. This car was just an object. But now, it carries a greater meaning. It represents the idea that respect can drive real change. The applause wasn't just for Keanu, it was for the message he had championed. What began as a moment of prejudice had turned into an enduring lesson of dignity and transformation. Keanu proved that even in the face of injustice, choosing kindness and integrity can inspire the world. The story faded from headlines, but its impact lived on. In the simplest moments of daily life, respect remained the truest luxury of all. If this story warmed your heart, click the screen to explore more tales of hope, compassion, and resilience.